Hi. So we're going to start with the press conference. So Ernesto, good evening. A big punishment almost, you were punished for everything you did, all the effort that you put in. It wasn't perfect because we didn't get the target that we wanted to achieve, but almost, wasn't it? Yeah, that's true. You've got to take into account that games last 90 minutes and you've got to be on it for 90 minutes, especially against teams that aren't going to forgive you or let you off. Results, you always judge everything by the final score. It was a wide scoreline. When we were at moments during the first half, we got in their box, we were close, we were pushing and pressing high. We felt like we had half a chance when it was 1-0. It was good to get ahead in the second leg, but then, above all, in the last 10 minutes, we were poor towards the end of the second half, those last 10 minutes. They scored a goal at a key time. We've not been that bad, though, They scored 3 more goals when our form dropped a little bit. It was almost like a walk in the park for them at the end, but we know it wasn't like that. If you were out there on the field, it's not been easy for them in the first leg or the second. We congratulate United. We know that the tie was a lot more even-steven than the scoreline suggests. But, if you take away those last few minutes, it was a much more even game. I'd like to know what's the dressing room? What the dressing room been like, and what sort of apprenticeship has it been for a lot of the younger players from this start of the season in this competition? We've been learning all the way. We always had the hope of arriving at the final in our own ground. It was a big incentive having that final in Bilbao. That was our big hope and desire. We want to go step by step. I think we've had a great tournament overall, but when you get moments like this against really strong sides, decisive moments, we kind of gave in a bit in the end. We conceded at key times, both in the first leg and tonight. It's a big scoreline, home and away. We knew it was an upward slope coming here, but we didn't want to come here with the big disadvantage that we had. We gave everything. I think a lot of players, it was the first time that they played in European competition. We've not been in this tournament for a while ourselves. People learn from these things and they use them as motivation as well. It's true that kind of it all collapsed a little bit towards the end. The team wasn't great towards the end. Can you put it into perspective? Get into the semi-final, it's okay, isn't it? It's a reasonable... The reality is, for us, it's a big success, relatively speaking. Being able to get this far and take part in a semi-final. That's a fact in itself, an achievement in itself. But obviously you want to achieve more, you wanted to get all the way to the final. But what are the feelings at the moment? Feelings at the end of the game, obviously that wasn't great, but it's been a fantastic tournament. I think we've done well right from the beginning, back in September. I'm a bit annoyed. We've got this kind of bittersweet feeling because of what happened in the last 10 minutes. We would have gone away from here a lot more happy if that hadn't happened. Knowing that in other conditions or in other circumstances, I think that to avoid it being knocked out, we could have done a lot more, And we know that the opponent's very, very good and they've got some great players. We've just got to keep going. There's no need to beat ourselves up about it. They've been strong in our area and converted their chances. That's what they did. Do you fear that this might have an effect on the league form with some big games coming up at home? How are we going out of the match here? Will the 4 league games left? How will the morale be after this? No, I think for sure. Whenever you're knocked out, it's always painful because you always have that hope that's shattered, and you always want to carry on and continue in the tournament. But only one team can win. We've got some big challenges ourselves in the league at home and stuff that we want to achieve. Sunday we've got a really big game against Alaves. We're in 4th place and we want to play in the Champions League next season, if it's possible. Is it easy after being knocked out like that? But do you think that the team really stamped their personality on the game? Would you say pride is a word you could use for this performance? Let's see. I mean, I think right now I'm a bit down because of the situation. I didn't like how we finished the game. You know, we weren't great. Those 10 minutes. I think before that, you know, it was a different game, wasn't it? But you've still got to play those last 10 minutes. Those last 10 minutes count as well. You know, you can't just give up. But I think we're happy what we've done this season overall, and in spite of these 2 games where we've encountered difficulties, I still think we've given a good account of ourselves. Our fans were brilliant, really impressive. What they pass on to us, the support they give us, what they showed to everyone. You know, we've proved to the United and the fans here just what a set of supporters we've got. They're fantastic. We've did all we could for them, and we're grateful. But I think the key now is for us, we're at this part of the season, we're all together, we stick together, we're united. It's hard to overcome moments like this. But, you know, we've got to show that our players are as constant as United. I think Manchester were very... it was even Steven up to the 70th minute, but then after that, the first sort of chance they had, they equalised on the night. Partly I understand what you're saying, but we always had this big desire and hope to get to the final, and then with that equaliser, it almost like it was slipping out of our hands, you know. But that's just another facet of football, isn't it? You concede, you've got to reset and try and respond. I think that we didn't give up, we didn't drop our shoulders, we didn't let our heads get down. But maybe we weren't pressing quite as high up the pitch, we were losing a lot of the duels and the tackles. You know, we tried to score to make it 2-1 again after they equalised, but when people like Garnacho is a great player, but when you get Amad Diallo coming on, it freshened everything up, you know, and I think made the difference. So you've had a really busy season, 2 games a week, continual games week after week. Do you think it takes out of you this competition? All these demands that we're putting on the team week after week, do you think you can keep it going to the end of the season? Well, if we want to take part in European competition, this is how it is, you know, 2 games a week. Every team has to do that, has to cope with that. Anybody who's in the Champions League or the Europa League, you have to cope with these fixtures. Demands high levels of concentration, fitness, and a mental approach to focusing on your bigger picture and your larger objectives. Manchester United are a team that are classically in the Champions League, and and they can maybe have certain players playing at 70% and they can still win games. The strength of the squad that they've got. We've got to be united together. We've got to battle, fight hard. Physically we're starting to feel it a little bit. We've got those injuries, people who weren't here tonight. It's, the mental approach as well is important. We've got to stay strong mentally. There's lots of games. Well, it is what it is. We're in this competition. We've got to cope with it. So at the end of the game, do you think San Mamés was the key? Conceding 3, the sending off. Yeah, I think the key to the tie was in San Mamés. It was won there, really. We didn't convert our chances at the beginning of the game last week, and then we conceded. We had the man sent off. It meant that we had to really change our tactic when we were playing away from home. We had to go for it here. It was a fair result, but it was one that was tough to take and hard to react to. We would have liked to have come into tonight with the scoreline being closer. We were trying all we could tonight to get that second goal, which would have been vital. But I think, the first game was decisive. Sometimes we focus on things that we don't win and what we don't achieve. What are the positives that you can take from this season? We've been earning and winning lots of things this season, but in football, in reality, there's lots of people lose all the time. You might win a semi-final, you might win a cup every so often in your career, but the majority of the time, you kind of lose, don't you? There can't be any more winners than just a couple of teams a year. If you spend a lot of years in your football career, you end up losing more games than you win. But in the long term, to create something, to create a project, you've got to keep going. You've got to keep that positivity. You've got to establish a style. You've got to establish a style of play that the players like, that the fans are entertained by. It's a priority of our club, not just for this game, small details in the preparation for this game. It's all about seeing if we can achieve something in these 4 remaining league games, which mean that it's been a nice end to the season. Talking about the immediate future, he had a few injuries going into this game. Prados seemed to be badly injured at the end. How is he? He had a knock, a really fierce knock on his tibia. I don't know how serious it is, but it's only had a quick look as he came into the dressing room. We've got to have tests, but it does look quite serious. What do you think about the tackle on Prados? Should he have been sent off, Lindelof? I didn't really see it, to be fair. I didn't. Prados isn't the type of player who kind of goes down easily. I don't know. I didn't think at the time it was a sending off, but I've not really seen it close up. You can't really do anything about that now, can you, anyway? We had to defend with only 10 players when it was the equaliser because we had the player down injured. Apart from 7-1 scoreline, what about the refereeing in both games? I could say stuff. I mean, you could take an opinion that all the controversial decisions were in favour of Bilbao, and the Manchester people will say that all are in favour of them. It was in the build-up to the equalising goal that there was a player down injured. I will look at it on TV. Basically said it. and depending on which team you support, you'll have one opinion, and if you support the other, you'll have another opinion.
Okay, who wants to start? Start with the microphone, please.
Hi Ruben, congratulations. What do you make of the performance of your side and getting through to the final?
Was a good result. I think if you look at both games, was so much tougher than if you look just to the result. We have so many weaknesses, and you can understand that in the game. But we are fighting, and we managed to pass. I think we deserve, if you look at two games, to be in the final.
Ruben, I know you've said that winning it won't mask a lot of things, but winning it would surely give you and your team huge belief going forward, quite apart from the money that you get. It'd be a trophy, it'll tell everybody that you are on the right path. It's obviously the biggest game that you've had since you've been at the club.
I think that is clear, and I agree. The money is not the most important. Even the title, or to win a title as a coach, is that feeling that we can do good things. The feeling to give something to our fans, especially in this kind of season. So I agree. It's not just playing Champions League next year. Is that feeling that we can change things.
Ruben, can I just ask you about Mason Mount? Because since you've arrived here, you've always been so adamant he'll be part of your plans, and when he scores the second goal, you just have this massive grin on your face. Can you just talk to us about your feelings?
Yeah. Not just me. If you look at the bench, that is the best thing. That is the best feeling for as a coach. When you look at the other guys on the bench, and they are so happy for Mason Mount, because everybody in that dressing room see Mason Mount doing everything he can to be available. He's really good player, and you can see both goals are really good goals. So I think not just Mason Mount, not just me, but also the teammates. They were so happy for him.
James.
Hi Ruben, you've won major titles before, but if you were to win this trophy in the context of this season, the difficulties you've had, where would this rank among your achievements?
Every coach will say that the next one is the most important. I think is the title with more exposure, but I cannot say that is the most important title. I think your first one, I think, is more important, because you want to establish you as a coach and to win something, to say that you have a title. But it would be massive, especially after this season in Premier League. So for me, it's the most important because it's the next one.
You said you would suffer tonight as a team, and that was the case certainly in the first half. Do you feel it would be a similar story in the final against Tottenham? We've beaten Manchester United 3 times this season, all 3 games. And with that record, do you feel that you're due a win over them, that your fans a win over Spurs in the final?
Every game has its history. So we lost the 3 last games, we can win this one. So if you look at the odds, we are closer to win than to lose. Both teams are going to play like all or nothing in this kind of game. It's quite similar the position of the coach is quite similar. I know that Ange has one more year. It is different, the context, but we are struggling both of us. So I don't know what is going to happen. That is a good thing and a bad thing with this team. I never know. So I will try to prepare the game, but I think we are improving. If we have more solutions and you can see that we can take Garnacho, that give us the speed, the transition for Ahmad, and to have that possibility can help us to win games. Mason Mount, Kobe Mino, all these players, we can choose from these players and to prepare a final in a better way. So that we have to understand that is a final is completely different from Premier League games.
Very good. What was your intention with the substitutions with Mount and Ahmad, and what do you make of their impact?
I think they changed the games, but that is credit to the players. What I felt that we need a little bit more energy. We had to keep the ball. I think when you play with Manu and Casemiro, we win in some areas, but we lose a little bit in the way we push forward the team. Bruno Fernandes is a really good player to drive the ball, but also to start the play with long passes, and that ability can help us. Ahmad is to change the Ahmad, because I felt that Ghana was a little bit tired. It was my fault because he did a really good job against Brentford, but we need to also to try to win games in Premier League. It's hard to think about everything in this kind of game. So my thinking is always to help the team to win.
Mr. Amorim, to follow on from that question, your substitutions have changed again. Are they capable of playing 90 minutes on Sunday and indeed in the Europa League final to beat them to?
It's going to be hard. Players like Mason Mount, we have to be careful. Ahmad is still getting his momentum. So some players are not capable to do that. I felt we rest Nous, but you can feel it. Mazraoui doesn't have the energy in this moment, so we'll try to help him in that department. Dalot is doing everything to recover, and I think they will push now to be available. So some players cannot play 90 minutes, and we have to protect them to don't get injuries to the final.
That concludes the post-match press